Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone Podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone Podcast. I'm Niko Tamurian. He is Najee Moye. And Najee, my goodness, it's a holiday edition of this, and I think all Seahawks fans want either in the stocking or under the tree a huge win on Thursday and a little something more this weekend.
Yeah, I think they definitely. Is it a present when you need to have it? I don't really know.
Right.
Like, I don't really know if it counts as a present. This is more like a life essential. This is like going to the store and getting milk, going to the store and getting eggs and bread. Okay, because
really
this is something that the Seahawks need if you want to make the playoffs. And we said this last week, and we talked about this all year. Niko, your win production could still happen.
It could.
However,
Maybe.
I know a lot of Seahawks fans are heartbroken about the game that happened just yesterday or on Sunday against the Vikings. I am too, because let me tell you, that is one that you wish you could steal. Coming after a really, really, really bad game against the Packers, when you're neck and neck with a team that's tied in the NFC North, maybe the second best team, or some may say the best team in the NFC North, definitely the healthiest, and you're neck and neck, and
it was right there. You take the lead with 4:21 to go.
Yeah.
And the defense has been playing pretty darn well all day.
Defense have been playing well.
And the fact that you just gave up a score in 30 seconds,
it's brutal.
it was just kind of like, what? And then on top of that, you get two chances after. Now, listen, I'm not going to knock
Let's
Jason
talk about
Myers.
what happened in that last interception, though, because
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't knock Jason Myers for missing a 60-yarder. That's a
No.
long way to kick
No,
football.
no.
I didn't think it'd be that short, but there's a reason people don't kick 60-yarders unless they're Nathaniel
well, his
Hackett.
longest is 61.
Yeah, like he could, like it's within his range, but it's kind of the edge of the range.
Sure.
But then you get the ball back again, and Gino, there's just, it was one of those things. It reminded me of seeing him after the Niners game, after the Bills game. He just wasn't, he knew, and we saw when Sam Howell came in the Green Bay game that this team needs Geno Smith, but it also needs Geno Smith to just protect the ball a little bit better in those situations, because.
A lot better, not a little bit better.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We need no picks
call it
as
what it
opposed
is.
to 2 picks.
Exactly.
You know?
Call it what it is,
Yeah.
because you have that one, and because that was such a dynamic situation, end of the game, it effectively ended the game. People forget that he threw one deep in his own territory earlier in the game.
Yep.
The Vikings kick a field goal, you lose by 3 points. That's your difference. I mean, think about that. If he doesn't throw that pick in the first half. And I'm not saying the Seahawks go down and score. Even if they punt the ball away, and then you're just, you're not handing the ball to Minnesota at the 30-yard line.
The field
or whatever it
position,
was.
the field position is very different.
And it's exactly, and it's all because of a pass that you can look at the X's and O's on that. You can say Geno shouldn't have thrown it. You can say Noah should have come towards the ball. The reality is, it was a tight window anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
It was forced, right?
It was forced, but also like it just depends on maybe who you ask. I mean, it seemed like Geno thought that DK was going to run a different route.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like, or at least Geno thought he was.
Sure.
Either way, right to the defense immediately.
Yeah, and so
And beyond that, and we talk about little mistakes. I mean, there's just that it was a sack initially,
Right.
and then that face mask on Byron Murphy on Sam Darnold, and Byron Murphy was like you told me, we were talking before the podcast,
Yeah.
so you were just like that was not a good call. It was a good call.
he pulled him down by.
He pulled him down by.
And
the
I think
face
Byron's
mask.
great, but you look at the replay, and so
It's just these little mistakes that bite the Seahawks, and little mistakes in this game. They're actually big mistakes.
Yeah.
These are mistakes that if they happen early in this game, they can put you down a lot more. Like we saw in the Buffalo game. I keep talking about the Buffalo game because that was deplorable to watch. And the same thing with the Packers game, even though that was more schematically issued. But I mean, if that sack happens and it stands, we're looking at a completely different result. I'm happy I'm wearing the Seahawks head today because I said on the podcast last week
right.
that if I'm wrong about the Seahawks losing to the Vikings, I would wear the Seahawks head on my head, and I have no head on my head because I was completely right yet again.
there you go. And so that's where we are now.
Right.
And that's what's frustrating about this situation, that the Seahawks no longer control their own destiny because of those mistakes.
Right.
And you can point to this game. You can point to other games, interceptions in the end zone, mistakes. I'm not talking about the Green Bay and the Buffalo game where they were just kind of out of it. I'm talking about other games they could have won. The Giants game. First of all, you shouldn't have been down to the Giants. You're one of their 2 wins this year, right?
Hey.
But then, no offense.
That's
but then,
true.
you have a field goal block when – in reality, it shouldn't have been that close anyway, but it's a missed opportunity. And so as you start to unpack all this, you understand that Now the Seahawks have to win these last 2 games. Of course, one of them being against the Rams, who they're trying to track down a game back with 2 to go.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can just win the 2 because
you need help.
If the Rams, if the Rams beat the Cardinals, then it's a moot point anyway, right? So you have to win both, and you have to hope for some help. And so that's not the situation you thought they would be in after winning 4 in a row.
No.
And listen, we all knew. We talked about in the show that the Green Bay Minnesota stretch was going to be tough. But what's frustrating about it is they played a poor game against the Packers, but they played a good one for the most part, other than the mistakes we just talked about. Like, they should have won in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda, whatever. But, yeah.
It was a considerable better game. And they were more prepared, I would say. They had Sam Darnold run for his life. Sam Darnold also made a crazy good throw.
Yeah, he looks good.
Right after that face mask that I just talked about. He looks good, and honestly, a comeback player of the year 100%. But I do believe... I talked about this on the podcast last week. I mean, for the Seahawks to make the playoffs, they need the Rams to have some help.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I watched the Rams and Jets game yesterday, and it was kind of a struggle to watch. It was more like my eyes were bleeding watching that game. But despite that, the Rams still won the game. I mean, the Cardinals all Seahawks fans need to become Cardinals fans now. Actually, after all the talk about Cardinals fans I've mentioned
Cardinals
on this
fans,
podcast,
we need you guys.
We need you. We need your support. Help me, Luke. We need your support because we need at least just to get to the point of that last game of the year being for everything.
Yeah.
What needs to happen, the Cardinals need to beat the Rams, and the Seahawks need to beat the Bears, which...
But, yeah, we'll get into that.
Let's get into it. I mean, look, the Bears are a team, I mean, they're maybe a little bit better than they were last year, if that. Caleb Williams has looked good. He's also looked really bad.
9 in a row, though.
Yeah, lost 9 in a row. I mean... this is a winnable game. That being said, you're going up to Chicago the day before Christmas or the day after Christmas?
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, and it is it's cold.
It's cold, yeah.
It's not like it's not cold
here. Can I tell you a story, Naj?
Go ahead.
So, listen, I haven't been here that long, but I plan on being here for a very long time. And my first year covering this team was 2021. And I'll never forget it. The day after Christmas, December 26, 2021, I woke up, there's like 6 inches of snow on the ground. My neighbors at the time had palm trees and there's snow on it. I'm like, this is such a cool dynamic. But the Seahawks played that day, December 26th, against the Chicago Bears.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and here we are 3 years later. Now, the dynamic of that game, slightly different than this one, whereas that Seahawks team had a losing record and was not like this one that has shown some really good flashes. However, the situation was similar in the sense that if the Bears won, there was zero chance the Seahawks would go to the playoffs. Now, it's a little different this time because it's like, well, they're right there.
A 20% chance they make the playoffs?
Yeah.
I would say that.
Yeah, it was like, if the Seahawks win this game, then they got to hope for like one other thing. Back then, it was like they have to win to keep like a 1% chance alive.
Sure.
And I'll never forget it. The Bears score late in the game, and they get a 2-point conversion to boot, and they won that thing, and it was... It was just like mind-boggling, and I couldn't believe it. I'm gonna look up one thing really quick on it here, but it's like, it was one of those things. The similarities of it are so uncanny. That's the day after
so
Christmas,
3 years ago,
the Seahawks playoff hopes are on the line.
So 3 years ago, the Bears had a rookie quarterback in Justin Fields at the time, right?
I believe that was a Nick Foles game.
A Nick Foles game.
Let me look up a box score, but it was.
Right.
I remember that. Yeah, it was Nick Foles. Jimmy Graham of all people caught the touchdown pass with 1 minute to go. That everybody thought was going to tie the game at 24, but the Bears went for 2 and got it and won 25-24.
Brutal.
And that ended. It was already a brutal year. I think they finished that year 7-10. Russell missed the 3 games. It was our.
Was that the finger issue?
The finger issue.
Right.
And then so there it was, and uncannily, it's the same. I don't know if that's a word, but it's the same date. 3 years later, December 26th, the Seahawks playing for their season, playoff hopes on the line. If they lose to the Bears, it's over with. And I hope that's not happening. I hope that's not some kind of like, vibe or buzz or whatever word you want to use.
How about this? I looked at ESPN's matchup predictor, and there's a 50% chance that the Seahawks can win. Do you think that's disrespectful? Yes or no?
Did they put it at 50-50?
Yeah, 50-50. It was a little bit more for the Seahawks, about 50.2 or something like that. But
that's surprising to me because the Bears have been putrid, and I think that the Seahawks are a good team, and I think the Seahawks are going to win this game. There's enough about it to scare me, but I wouldn't say 50-50. When I say scare me, it's because, as we've talked about often in the show, when I talk about a prediction or how I feel about a game, it's about things I notice around.
Are the Seahawks a good team?
Yeah, they're a good team. Are they a great team? No. Are they a very good team? No.
Okay.
They're a good team.
Okay.
They're right where they should be.
If
you're talking about 7 teams making the playoffs in each side and the Seahawks are on the fringe, you're talking about the Seahawks being the 15th or 16th best team out of 32? Yeah. That's where I would put them, right smack in the middle.
Okay. I mean, I'm just thinking about, the last couple of weeks have been.
I'd put them between, like, the maybe 12th or 13th best to, like, the 16th or best or so.
I think you're probably right. Right.
And I think that's good.
The problem with that
but not great, not very good, not whatever.
The problem with that is if the Seahawks are the 16th best team, then the Rams are probably the 15th.
It's right there, yeah.
That's the problem, and that's the biggest problem.
But that's it. Listen, I mean, how many times have we seen teams with losing records win their division, get in? I mean, I think it was Tom Brady's Bucks a couple years ago that did the same thing.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. Get in the playoffs, get in the dance. Beastquake, 2011. That was a losing record team that got in there and beat up on the Saints, who were coming off some special stuff.
I guess my struggle is this was a very winnable division. I think, considering the situation that the Niners are in and the Rams are kind of all year, but I don't know. I mean, the solace that Seahawks fans can take in this is the first year of the Mike McDonald experience. Sure.
This would be a lot different, right, if it was still Pete?
If it was still Pete, but that being said, the result is not completely different. Mm-hmm. I mean, winning the division wild card, it's kind of like apples and oranges, I guess. I don't know. I want good things for this team. I think this team could make the playoffs. I just the last 2 weeks have been brutal. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, brutal in different ways too, right?
Yeah, well, and the losses have been really awful. I mean, talk about the Giants loss. We talk about the Packers loss, the Bills loss. I mean, we saw what the Rams did with the Bills a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. That's why that discrepancy comes, and we'll see what the future of K9 means also, because he also went down this Sunday. And that being said, the Hawks are right there with a good Vikings team. I mean, it's just a bummer. I'm bummed.
It is. Yeah, and listen, I think it's not a good sign, Najee, when I woke up today and my first thought was, other than like wife and kid and dogs and stuff like that. Sure. My first thought about work was, man, Najee and I are going to have a lot to talk about on the postseason podcast. Where do the Seahawks go from here? Big decisions they got to make on Geno. Is this the year you finally, I think it has to be, but I've been saying it for 2 years, get your next quarterback? That kind of thing. And I think that's a discussion for January. A discussion for January, because I have thoughts. I mean, just considering about how yesterday's game went. I like Geno, but I mean, is there a better option out there? Who knows? We'll talk about that later. But, but the reason I don't like that I thought about that is that we're in the middle of a playoff race. Well, and I think that, and then you look at it, it's like, my gosh, 2 weeks ago, I was like, man, I'm going to be going on the road in January probably, because I think they'll win a playoff game at home and then they'll go face one of the big boys, and and then when I say big boys, Lions or Eagles, and then next thing you know, I mean, it's going to be a scrap just to get in there. Kind of like you said, they can get there, they should beat the Bears, but it's not going to be the pushover shoo-in some would think on the surface. And Arizona's a good team. Yeah, they lost to the Panthers. The Seahawks. The Seahawks may have broken them by beating them twice in 3 weeks.
The Panthers, Bryce Young has gotten benching somebody is the best thing you can do to somebody. Sure. I think situations matter, and not to go down the wormhole. Like, look at how great Sam Darnold is this year. Yeah. Look what Geno's done the last couple of years. Right. These quarterbacks, when they're so young, they don't thrive right away. They're just kicked to the curb and labeled a bust, and it's like, well, maybe they weren't drafted in the right situation. Or by the Jets. As in the case of Darnold and others, and Geno, obviously. And then it can even be a veteran thing. I mean, like, everybody wrote Russell off, and then next thing you know, he's playing pretty good with Pittsburgh. Right. Maybe a couple rough weeks, but like overall, they're a 10-win football team. They're in the playoffs. So. It's true. So at the end of the day, Seahawks, Bears. Yeah. Let's talk about if they'll win the game. Yeah, I think they'll win. Okay. Would I bet my house on it? No. No, you like that house. I do. Yeah. But I think that I think it's closer than it needs to be. I think it's a dogfight day after Christmas, little like. Look, if it's a close game, you don't want to make the playoffs at that point. I think the Seahawks win this thing 17-13. Now, a score like that on the road in Chicago, cold. Because the defense is going to make Caleb make mistakes. Well, yeah, and because of that, I'm thinking the Seahawks will win the game 24-3. Because the defense, I would much rather have that. Because the defense will force. I want Roma Dunze to get a touchdown as long as the Seahawks win. Okay, well, he won't get that. I'm sorry. We'll talk about another Husky later that I'm giving a big shout out to.
Yeah, let's
also.
do that later.
But I think the Seahawks defense needs to make Caleb Williams look like a rookie. Played great against Sam Darnold, not as good as they could have played, obviously. And please, hands off the face.
Yeah.
Because that face mask call, it was a good call. He obviously, Byron Murphy, a rookie, made a rookie mistake. I know we're like 15, 16 weeks in, but it's like that's essentially the season.
Yeah,
when it comes down to it, so that's unfortunate.
God, you just made me sad again.
No, I mean this is just being honest,
No,
now what I did say though is last week was that the Rams could drop a game to either the Jets or the Cardinals. Now the Cardinals or in the Jets game, it was 6-6 for a long time in that game, and the
Jets jetted.
Yeah, the Jets did the thing that the Jets usually do, and the Rams ended up winning that game. I'm saying that next week or this coming weekend against the Cardinals, we need Cardinal Nation support. I don't know if anyone has ever said those words before.
If you're still lurking around our show, Cardinals fans, we need you guys.
We need you guys. This is not a Cardinals podcast, but it can be very soon.
If the Cardinals beat the Rams and the Seahawks win, and we get a winner-take-all showdown next week, I will wear something Cardinals on next week's show.
Whoa!
I don't own any Cardinals apparel, but I will find something.
We'll play with the.
I will rush ship something. Here.
We'll do the whole podcast with Kyler Murray Call of Duty headgear on.
I do have one of those.
I do too.
They hated when you made that joke, by the way, but yeah.
And I like the Cardinals. I think they are on the right track.
Team,
they're a dynamic team, and they're on the right track. They're a little. They can definitely bite you, just like how the Panthers can.
Well,
bite a
that's
team.
just it.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's a long shot for the Seahawks to make this all happen because things have to fall into place. But it's not as if they take care of business as they should. Against the Bears, the Cardinals and Rams, divisional foes, they know each other. Crazier things have happened, and it's not like
I want to see who won that first.
Well, it's not like here's the thing: the Rams are red hot right now, no question about it.
Sure,
but all of that can come to a screeching halt. I mean, the Seahawks won 4 in a row, and then they ran into Green Bay, and it was just a bad matchup, a slow start. I mean, the old cliche goes, they all drive sports cars, they all drive Mercedes, whatever cliche you want to use. I know that's always thrown around in the locker rooms. But it's true in this league, and that's how the Panthers beat the Cardinals. And it's not as far-fetched as it seems. And the reason it seems that way is because things have to fall perfectly into place.
Exactly.
That's why.
I want to mention really quick, the Cardinals destroyed the Rams week 2. 41-10. Yeah. It's hard.
Team at this point in the
different
season.
team at this point in the season. I know the Rams had a lot of injuries at that time. Our co-worker, our colleague Taylor Corlo, if he was here, he'd be like, "Oh, we're going to the playoffs." That's it.
That's why he's not on the show.
That's why he's not.
We love that guy, and he produces this, producer Taylor. But
right.
We'll wait for next week on that. And if it's a lame,
that's huge.
If it's a lame duck game, like if the Seahawks somehow lose or the Rams beat the Cardinals, then it's like, oh, all right, Taylor, you win. I'll give him McDonald's live on the air from our bet in August or September, whatever that was.
Yeah.
That got me depressed thinking about it. So let's think happy thoughts here. My key to this Seahawks game here against the Bears, the Hawks defense is dynamic and complex. And Minnesota's high-octane attack had some issues at times. Did Justin Jefferson get free? Of course.
It's Justin Jefferson.
But it's Justin Jefferson.
Right.
And understandably, the Seahawks were doing some tinkering in that secondary. Reek, a team rules thing, wasn't out there for the first series, and Minnesota goes down and scores. Listen, you got to have rules, and you got to have accountability if you're Mike. But in hindsight, I mean, Reek's not out there, they score, and then when you know what I'm saying? That could have made a difference.
It's true. It's true.
And so, and granted, I'm not knocking Mike McDonald, and very transparently, Reek is one of my favorite people.
We need that sort of accountability on that team. I don't think Byron Murphy should start the first drive of this game, this next game either.
There's some kind of team rules thing for Reek, is what Mike said. But
look,
ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that Minnesota's got a really nice offense, and the Seahawks kind of, so to speak, anyway. You look at 27 points.
Comparatively.
But they did well against them. And Mike McDonald is a mad scientist on that side of the ball. He finally at least has a few more guys that he really can trust, like Ernest Jones, who we've talked about at length on this show.
Right.
And so I suspect they're going to do everything they can to make Caleb Williams look like a rookie, and I think they'll succeed in that.
Yeah.
But the offense, this Mike's been saying for weeks, both sides have to start fast. Sometimes it's been no side, like against Green Bay.
Yeah.
On Sunday, it was the offense getting that first score and
Sure.
getting a touch, but the defense, so to speak, started slow because they allowed an early touchdown. This is the opportunity to right things, and I know it's a short week. Mike McDonald said it was a gift, though, because get to run it back. They're angry.
Yeah.
They get to go out there and do it again. And I think all these play in
to
getting the win that they have to get.
That's happened before this season.
Yeah.
A little short week turnaround. And how did it go?
Not great.
Okay.
But they remember that, well, God, we were talking about that because they lost to the Giants.
Right.
And we're like, oh, it was a frustrating loss. They get to run it right back. And then the Niners, boy, oh boy, that was the ugly Niners game.
We're looking forward to this game. I know one of our
I just
producers.
want to know what's going to happen.
I beyond the Seahawks game, I think first we need the Cardinals to win.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Saturday.
That's Saturday. And I think that's probably I know that doesn't come first, but if I'm talking about things I want to happen.
Exactly, yeah.
And I know I feel more confidence in the Cardinals to beat the Rams than the Seahawks to beat the Bears. Oddly enough.
That's a hot take.
It's a hot take. And I don't know why I feel that way, but I do
I'm not
feel that way.
I'm not blame you for thinking it. But I mean,
Yeah.
Seahawks have the last couple of weeks not shown that ability, like that killer edge, right?
Yeah, and they'll get there. I mean, honestly, like I said, this is the first year of the Mike McDonald era, and they honestly, first-year head coaches, so oftentimes they don't do very well. And I think the city really has embraced Mike McDonald and embraced this team. Coming after Pete, it's hard to come after a legend like that. It's very difficult. But I think this team is looking in the right direction. A playoff berth this first year would be great. It could happen. It might happen. Niko thinks it could happen.
I don't know that it'll happen, but I feel good about this Thursday.
Yeah.
And then but the Rams beating the Cardinals, I think that's probably what happens. As much as I want the Cardinals to win, so
we'll see.
That's what I think ends up happening. But we'll see. But boy, I'll tell you one thing we've gathered from the show: we're not throwing the towel in on the season just yet. Even if some of you may have, and you're entitled to that, but there's a lot to unpack after the season, good and bad.
Right.
What kind of decisions come next? The beginning of the Mike McDonald era, all that sort of stuff. It would be great. It's almost like when you talk about Husky football, right? Like it was not by their standards a good season at 6-6, but for Jed Fish, what he's trying to do there to get to a bowl game and to be in a
it's baby steps,
something of a signature bowl like the Sun Bowl, second oldest out there. Yeah, it's a step.
I love that you mentioned the Sun Bowl being the illustrious.
The second oldest bowl
game.
The
illustrious Sun Bowl.
Yeah, well,
yes.
They got the mountains over there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I always enjoyed that game. It's early on New Year's Eve. As Jed Fish said, that nobody's hungover yet.
That is true.
Beautiful line, man.
It's a beautiful line.
But enough about the college game. I think that, the most consequential week of Seahawks football that we've seen in a year.
Well,
because
yeah.
last year they had that same win in scenario, and then the year before that they had the same
most
thing.
consequential week of Seahawks football we've seen in literally a week.
Yeah,
because I think at the situation
like
that they
mode.
put themselves in, I mean, they kind of But you're talking about Huskies. I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Michael Penix Jr.
Amen to that,
Mr. Silky Durag, and the throwback Falcons jerseys.
Beautiful.
He did throw a pick.
Yeah, that was kind of on Kyle Pitts, though.
It was a crazy pick, honestly. Yeah. I wouldn't even put that on him.
I would put it on Kyle Pitts more than anybody. No offense to Kyle Pitts.
And he's probably going to end up starting the rest of the year, honestly, for the Falcons. He could.
He will.
And honestly, the Falcons may have found their starter, and it's not Kirk Cousins.
Well, here's the thing about that is that it's not like Mike lit up the scoreboard. As you mentioned, no touchdowns, 202 yards.
Yeah.
However, he didn't turn the ball over that much. The one pick, not really on him, kind of whatever.
Sure.
Whereas Kirk Cousins threw 9 in 5 games.
Yeah, that's not
so
great.
You're averaging almost 2 at that point, and
right.
it's just so he protected the football. And yes, it was the Giants, but we'll see moving forward.
No, and it's true, and that's a big point spread. Look, they helped the Giants out. The Giants are getting the first overall pick of the draft this year. So shout out to Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. But talking about Kirk Cousins, we talk about the future of the Seahawks. I'm just gonna leave it at that. How's that for a tease?
You think Kirk's going to come out here?
I think Kirk is not going to be a Falcon next year.
I don't think he comes here. I don't think that's what they do.
Well,
if they either A, move on from Geno, or B, bring in the next quarterback,
I don't think it'll be.
This is an off-season conversation, but my tease would be number 5 in the Colts.
Ooh, you've always liked him.
Because I know the front office liked him leading into the draft.
Yeah, you've been high.
And listen. I think Devin Witherspoon was the best case scenario. He's just everywhere on defense. He's a game changer.
Sure.
I still think, though, if Richardson was there at 5, they may have taken him instead of Spoon, which is, in hindsight, I'm so glad they took Spoon because he's been such a game changer. But
Yeah. That being said, if the Hawks win this week and the Rams lose this week, we're having a completely different conversation next week.
Yeah, I think we're diving into the future of this team next week if they
Yes,
lose.
yes.
But let's hope we have one more at least, maybe 2, maybe 3 more shows of breaking down meaningful playoff-impacted football games.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks are a good team. They are. They just got to clean up those mistakes. Be that dominant defense we saw for a month. That 4-game win streak. Go back to that. Be a dominant defense. Do not turn the ball over in untimely situations. We saw some positives.
It's difficult to go back to that when you're not playing the Cardinals twice and the Jets and the Niners the second time.
Remember how jazzed we were about that Niners win? Then they've fallen off the face of the earth since then.
It does help that the Seahawks beat teams they're supposed to beat outside the Giants.
Yeah, and you're supposed to beat the Bears. You should beat the Bears. Keep this good vibe alive for at least for a few more days.
Right.
And
start a good vibe and keep it.
Because I would love a winner-take-all game. There's not much. It's almost like a one-game wild.
It's like a game
baseball.
7.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. Game 7, whatever you want to call it.
Knowing that the loser won't make the playoffs, given the NFC
and
being
there's
so
precedent there. See, I wasn't, so we'll see. Najee,
Niko,
it's not RIP to the Seahawks season yet.
they're still alive.
And let's hope next week's show is neither.
The bird is still crowing. It's still crowing.
For Najee Moye, I'm Niko Tamurian. This is the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast. We love bringing this to you with our unique and exclusive access to the Hawks. You can't get anywhere else. Take care.
Bye.